My dear brothers and sisters, how grateful I am for the marvelous messages of this conference, and for my privilege to speak with you now. For the more than 36 years I've been an apostle, the doctrine of the gathering of Israel has captured my attention. Everything about it has intrigued me, including the ministries and names of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, their lives and their wives, the covenant God made with them and extended through their lineage, the dispersion of the 12 tribes, and the numerous prophecies about the gathering in our day. I have studied the gathering, prayed about it, feasted upon every related scripture, and asked the Lord to increase my understanding. So imagine my delight when I was led recently to a new insight. With the help of 2 Hebrew scholars, I learned that one of the Hebraic meanings of the word Israel is "let God prevail."
Travis, my good soul. Looks like I have a comment reply to a Mormon who's been a naughty girl. She's been asking questions and nobody's giving her answers. And so she's now come to me asking me those questions, hoping I would answer them for her. Sure, I'll answer them. So, it has to do with the gathering as the general theme. Her first question is, when did the church start the gathering of Israel to Zion? Well, it depends on which generation of the church you're referring to. Joseph Smith was trying to start it up and get it going, and was assassinated, and it ended. Brigham Young then gathered everybody to Salt Lake Valley as he was trying to build up an army against the United States, and the United States shut him down. So since then, with Heber J. Grant reincorporating the church in 1923, the church has now said, we're gathering Israel where you are around the world. And so that has been the policy since then, until Nelson. Nelson has come out and said that Salt Lake City is Zion, confirming what Brigham Young was saying, that it is not Missouri, that there won't be a gathering in Missouri, as Mormons have been led to believe since Heber J. Grant, and even before, because of Joseph Smith, that there would be a return to Missouri. And everybody's gotten it wrong, because it was the Danites who were saying that Joseph Smith said. Danites are the evil secret conspirators within the church, led by Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball, who first converted them into the church and then had them likewise go out on missions to tell everybody that it's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and the Book of Mormon is another testament of Jesus Christ. Which is why Joseph Smith had to come out with his 1838 visionary accounts to try to set the record straight. And we are witnesses of the Danites having tampered even with that document, as the Joseph Smith Papers reveals that Willard Richards was the one who added Jesus Christ to the name of the church that Joseph put in there. Joseph never called it the Church of Jesus Christ, And so therefore, Brigham Young cannot be the second president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He's the first, because he created the name. It's his church with his name and his Christ. It is not Joseph's church. That's what the Joseph Smith Papers confirms. And Mormons get mad at me for exposing this. So, Bednar, just the other week, as apparently Mormon May has missed this. Let me get the title for you. It's quite a while ago. Was it really before? Wow. No, it has to be after that. So, okay, so it's not the picture I was thinking of. Converting to Mormonism. Throwing away membership records. 9/11, Latter-day Prophecy. Threatening me to be silent. Church's big lie. Really? Has it been that long? I have to go to full screen here. Get more videos on the screen. Warned you in advance of thunderstorms and power outages and tornadoes. Oh my. There it is. 2 weeks ago. Yeah, they did respond. That is hilarious. Yeah, Bednar had begun after conference to do some video series. He started with 2 weeks ago, Come to Zion. That's an order. The way it's worded is an order. Even in the hymn, Come to Zion, come to Zion. It's an order. And so Bednar, as a prophet, is ordering Mormons to come to Zion. Now, if you're thinking he's, winging this, he's independent from the rest of the prophets and going against the president of the church and his inspired instructions, no. They all get assignments. Bednar's assignment was to do these videos. And so you need to know and understand how the system works. They've had too many problems in the past with rogue agents. And so in order to control that, they have to write the story narrative. And so the church news, it's what the prophet wants in the church news. Nobody can wing it in the church. Nobody can spout their own doctrine in the church. The church has to rein it in and control the narrative. And so Nelson ordered that Bednar do this. And so this not being Nelson is something that, like I said, Mormons are unaware that it was President Nelson who's ordered this. And so they're hoping that the general membership, by it just being in the church news and on the church news YouTube channel, which is brand new, by the way. Actually, no. They have another channel. They were doing something new in the church news prior to that. A new channel, but regardless, it was on the church news YouTube channel, and thus on the church news. where it's being advertised. And so the majority of Mormons don't refer to these places. I'm assuming, well, it has 10K views. So, yeah, there are lots of Mormons who are watching this. But the general Mormons have believed, oh, yeah, we gather where we are in the world. I've heard it throughout my time in the United States and Canada over the decades. That's been the general cop-out, so that Mormons don't get accused of giving a prophetic date for the second coming and then being wrong, like other false churches have been. That's what they're not wanting to risk. And so, but in giving this video, with Nelson having declared Salt Lake as Zion, he's saying, come to Salt Lake. He's putting out the call right now. And if you don't understand the big picture context, this is the latter days. This is the final year of the latter days. On 8 April 2024, that's the last day of the latter days. And as much as you believe Matthew as a cop-out, so that you don't get accused of being false, and that the church is false, we do know the exact day and hour. The person who put that in there is called a redactor, and he was not the writer, the original writer of the document. He was purposely trying to deceive people, as the church is trying to deceive us. And so I then did my video here. It had 269 views in 2 weeks, which is impressive. But in the context, it was right after conference, and so I see a lot of 200s. There's a 300. Jesus isn't Joseph Smith's Christ. Mormons in shock and in denial. 333 views in 13 days. That's interesting. Mixture of Scottish rites and York rites in that one. And then, yeah, the big one where YouTube dropped the ball. LDS Church releases 1844 documents exposing their plot to murder Joseph Smith. It's over 2K. And then it froze. YouTube cut it off. Refused to let anybody else see it. They fixed their error. Because obviously people wanted to watch this. And YouTube had silenced me on this one. And it was the church that released it in the church news. So I just covered it as a news story. And there's bombshells that the church doesn't want you to see, even though they advertise the release of the 1844 documents. And so then I'm not sure if I had it as a separate video or if I put it in one of my videos that were no longer going. Could be the response videos. Yeah, it must have been that situation because I'm not seeing it in the titles. Alrighty. And so yeah, he came out, I think it was just recently. Yeah, because there's another video I did after that, which also got 229 views 2 weeks ago. LDS Church begins first wave gathering to Utah Zion in last year of latter days. I put some clips of Nelson. And so, yeah, They had to come out with Bednar doing more videos to backtrack and say, nope, Zion is where your temple is in your part of the world. And I've explained why the church is doing this. It's because they only want the rich, elite, obedient here in Utah. They're going to purge the rest of us. So if you're poor and you believe the church is true, sorry, you're not good enough. I try to warn you, but you won't believe. And so this is part of what they consider the separation of the sheep from the goats, the righteous from the wicked. You're wicked by being poor. The church is never given to the poor. There's always a catch. You have to pay them back. You have to be working. There's always a catch, and the church always makes money off of you in the process. And so that was what they were trying to do, was sneak out the word to the rich Mormons around the world for them to now start making preparations to come to Utah to live. And I've done the videos as we were leading up to this moment. Senator Mike Lee tried to have that put in the law for foreigners to come to the United States to work, and that would be the reasoning why the church could bring Mormons in foreign countries to Utah, is for the purpose of working here in Utah. That was what Senator Lee was doing to help the church. And the reason why we have a housing crisis and why there's a big boom of housing being built, even though there was that arsonist, which that was very weird. They've caught the person, apparently, but they were going around to the new apartment buildings being built and burning them down. I don't know what their thinking was on that, but yeah, that was what the church was trying to do, is now that we're in the final year, get all the apartments built, as they're trying to make Utahns believe that it's for them. No, because this is the year of desolation, destruction, and the day that shall burn as an oven. And so for the new apartment building that I'm in, it's one of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, 8. The other 7 are still not completed yet. Though I did see 3 women who were in, which I'm guessing there must be a pool in there. I've never been allowed in. This morning I was tempted to go and check in the weight room because I didn't see the sign up saying that it's not opened yet. It's not ready yet. And so I was going to check it out. But the lights were out this time. But anyway, I then saw 3 ladies coming out of the other doors out in the front area. And thought that was weird because they didn't come into my building. So I'm not sure if other buildings are available. I did see a person on Thursday move into my building. But yeah, they're just barely finishing buildings in my complex. And there's still lots of others being built around. And as I've noticed, they're poisoning us with other problems that are involved that have been a problem in Utah as well. They've not wanted the Mormons to thrive here in Utah. Only the rich elite. And you can see the segregation of the rich and the poor here in Utah. Because every new subdivision is for the rich. And then the poor subdivisions get poorer. Even though the cities are still charging lots of rent and high prices for the homes and apartments in their cities, even though they're worn down and need to be torn down but it's the only thing that the poor can afford as long as the whole family are working. But yeah, it's been awful from what I've witnessed over the decades since I've lived here. And so, in that sense, the gathering has begun. But Nelson is trying to make sure that only the rich, obedient, come to Utah. So that's what needs to be understood here, is that they're trying to tell everybody not to rush to Utah. They don't want you to come to Utah if you're not rich. Because the rich tend to have the important jobs and can be productive. And if you're obedient, then you're complicit in the church's criminal activities, such as polygamy, as I've exposed when Nelson changed the law of chastity to order polygamy. How many of you are obedient to that? Really? You didn't know? Not watching my channel, huh? So yeah, those who are obedient will be rewarded with leadership positions, because only high priests, remember, they were done away with and put with the elders. And so any of you who have been high priests are going to be grandfathered out. And so there won't be any of this, oh, you're 55, you're no longer young like an elder, and you associate with the high priests in the high priest group, and you attend there because they're your age. Fine, we'll give you an honorary high priest ranking. That's how it's been done in the church. But no more of that. They're not going to do that anymore. You have to obtain an administrative office to become the high priest now. And those, according to Brigham Young's changes, blaming Joseph for it, requires polygamy. And so, yeah, those who are obedient to polygamy, and you're saying, well, how can you do that? It's illegal to practice polygamy. You're not paying attention. The church does not accept civil divorces. You are still sealed to your spouse. And so when you get remarried, as the United States accepts it, because you're no longer married to your first wife, the church says, great, you now have a polygamous wife. They found a loophole in the system, and only the obedient are obeying. And so that's the gathering. And I've warned you, it's not for consenting adults. Polygamy under the church is for child brides. Just because the United States is keeping an eye on them now, and it's all underground as spiritual wifery, don't think that once the church establishes their Zion, after owning the land where temples are and churches are. I had a person email me today about all of the land that the church owns here in the Salt Lake Valley. 971 locations in Salt Lake alone. That's a lot of land. You can pretty much say they own Salt Lake. And so, even if the buildings are destroyed, the church still owns the land. So like the temple in Ukraine, if Russia has destroyed the temple, the church still owns the land. They paid for it, it's theirs. But if Russia takes over, Russia can say, hey, That was with Ukraine, not with us. But the church did give Russia money for a temple, yet to be determined, in Russia, in a major city. What happened to that money? What did Putin use it for instead? Done those videos. So yeah, the war in Ukraine, that's all about the second coming of Jesus. And I've told you they've finished things up and are finishing things up. Joseph Smith Papers, Joseph's birthday, that's it. They're finished. Book of Mormon video series, done. They're finished. The Handbook of Instructions, done. They're finished. And other things, they're finishing it up. The Salt Lake Temple, if they aren't done with the retrofitting of the earthquake-proof things underneath, they will be soon, because they still have to do the remodeling of the inside of the building, and then the grounds need to be remodeled. And so even though the church came out and said it's going to be another year into 2026, they're preparing for destruction. They're preparing for it to be ready and operational for 6 April 2024's General Conference. They were planning to dedicate the temple. And they were also planning on redesigning the new names. And I could see them doing what Benjamin did in the Book of Mormon, King Benjamin, where he gives the people a new name, and the new name is Jesus Christ. I can see Nelson doing that for next April conference. But like I said, I'm concerned, as this year is the day that shall burn as an oven, and other destructions are coming. And economic disaster is coming, etc., etc. And so I'm not sure if we're going to have an October conference. But I did that trilogy video series to explain what might happen according to the prophecies that are added by Joseph Smith in the Book of Mormon. And so, where is going to... Zion is here on earth. When you're talking about the Zion in heaven, as the Gospels talk about the kingdom of heaven, they're talking about the kingdom on earth. Remember, it's learning of the Jews, manner of prophecy, books of Revelation for the latter days. They are like the parables in those stories. And so, that's why they say the kingdom of heaven is likened unto. It's the kingdom on earth. The Danites, they were deceiving Mormons, not only into thinking that that was the Christian Church of Jesus Christ, but also that the location of Zion was in Independence, Missouri. And Joseph Smith, in the Joseph Smith Papers, 19 July 1840, tells us no. And I again redid that video for you in that trilogy. And he makes it very clear it's Southern Illinois. Why is it Southern Illinois? Because that's where X marks the spot for the signs in the heavens of the latter days. Solar eclipses give us a star date of when they will occur, as well as the location on Earth where they will occur. When and where. We know the day and the hour and the location. And so it's not Jerusalem. It's not Egypt. It's not Spain. It's not China. It's not South America. It is Southern Illinois. And Joseph Smith confirms this, because he also knew of the dates of the latter days, as I went over with you. And so that's where Zion is supposed to be. Like I said, this is the Great and Abominable Church, and Nelson's running it. He's saying Salt Lake City is Zion, and they've called the gathering to Zion. And remember, Nelson gave that talk where he botched the translation of Israel on purpose, because it's the white supremacist definition. That he studied the gathering, he knows all about it, and then had to have help as to the white supremacist translation of Israel. And so, yeah, this is what he's all about. He's gathering. And right now, he's making sure that he's buying up land throughout the world and telling Mormons to gather where you are. Only the rich are to come to Utah, who are practicing polygamy. The rest of us are getting rounded up in the poor neighborhoods and at the homeless shelters to be exterminated this year. That's why they did not want me to get out of the shelter into this apartment. That's why people lost their jobs, because they failed. So who are the chosen people? We're all human. This concept of chosen people has been misunderstood since the beginning. The restoration of Zion is the restoration of what scriptures say, the kingdom of David. And in this church, Joseph Smith says it was the original kingdom by the first man, Adam. And so when you understand that, anybody who follows the true religion are the chosen people. If you choose not to follow the true religion, then you're not the chosen people. That's a simple explanation for you. But yeah, the Jews have attached it to them because of they actually having been a part of the original true religion, which were the Egyptians. The kingdom of David, Moses, which was the 18th dynasty pharaohs, the Tawut Moshe, phonetically the same. But problems ensued as the kingdom collapsed and was taken over by the Ramesses Seti dynasty instead, the Ra Moseses. And then you have other events that take place over time. Assyria takes over northern Israel from Egypt, and then Babylon takes over Judah from Egypt. They were never independent nations. That's just a misconception of the biblical stories, which are prophecies of latter-day revelation. And so Joseph Smith, by saying that the Christ of Mormons is a Mormon, that makes Mormons the chosen people. But again, if Mormons aren't going to hearken to him, as Joseph Smith orders Mormons to do, then Mormons are not the chosen people, and they will die because they didn't listen. Joseph Smith uses cut off. He refers us to Acts, precisely as it stands, which says destroyed, but the Greek indicates utterly destroyed. And that's where I'm pushing stronger this year with the bicentennial year of Joseph's second vision, where he talks about this, because I understand the importance. And, it's unfortunate that Mormons see my pushing harder as a sign that they need to resist harder. That's just stupid. But they're not listening anymore anyway. So when is the second coming going to happen? There is no second coming. Jesus is a fraud created by Constantine. That's what Joseph Smith was telling us in the first vision, verse 19. Calls him an abomination. Therefore, the great and abominable church of the Book of Mormon is the church for the latter days that has the name Jesus Christ in it. So yes, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the great and abominable church. And you can confirm that because there's a whole long list that you can check off to make sure it truly is the great and abominable church. And so yes, from the inverted pentagram to murdering Mormons to holding Mormons in bondage through tithing, the slave trade, at the shelter, neglecting the poor by donating to the shelter rather than to the organizations that actually get the homeless into homes. Church doesn't give to those organizations. They gave to the shelter. Over $300 million was given to the shelter. Church gave $3.3 million to the shelter. The state of Utah wasted $300 million on the shelters. Not a single penny goes to the poor and the homeless because it's for the shelters and the corporation that runs them. They're the ones who got rich off of this because the state did not give to the actual companies who use the funding to get the homeless homes. Very frustrating. But yeah. So the second coming began, according to prophecy and the star date of prophecy, on the 23rd of September 2017. The Tetrad in 2014-2015 was a pre-show for us. So Mormon's spiritual witness was correct. This is the latter days. That is it. That starts it. But Monson came out and said, no, your spiritual witness is wrong. And so Mormons, okay, we'll trust the living prophet of the Lord, he must know. And so they doubted their spiritual witness. If only I can get them to doubt their spiritual witness for this. Instead, they hardened their hearts. And so, like I said, it ends 8 April 2024. That's the last day. So it's an 8-year period of time. Thus, Palm Sunday to Easter Sunday is 8 days for a symbol of the 8 years of the latter days. The Passover, of which Passion Week replaced, is 8 days. It has to do with the Exodus. The latter days for the man like Moses. That's what the Exodus was symbolizing. And so, yeah, the Mormon Christ is already here. He's already trying to get Mormons to come out of the church to save their lives, to prevent them from the tortures that are coming. And especially women are going to be the ones who suffer the most. And it pains me to no end, because I have had experiences, and I was wondering if I should even dare try the video, and I'm already starting to tear up talking about it because of what I have experienced with those women who have been abused from kindergarten. I know what they're doing to you. I know what they're going to do to you. And yet they've played you for your feelings to manipulate you. And so it pains me the most that women are the ones who are the most hardened, who refuse to believe that it would ever be possible. And yet you don't even bother to look at the United States and what they've done to you. The church is like-minded with the United States, who's doing all this to you. You know, Roe v. Wade got overturned so that you're forced to have rape babies and babies that are dead in your womb that are miscarried, but you have to have them to term now. And then they're taking away abortion pills, and then they'll come after contraception, and they'll force you to be slaves to your husband again. Sex slaves. You're going to be breeders. You won't be allowed an education anymore. You won't be allowed to have a career. You're for breeding only. And you don't even see how they used you to accept those who are trans. And now, what are trans doing? They're entering women's sports and kicking women out of the sports. The first trans athlete to be a part of women's sports on the first competition broke the world record. It is destroying women's sports. And if you know anything about women's sports, they've been struggling forever to try to be equal with men's sports. And now all of a sudden, trans are coming in, destroying it. You know, the soccer team for women, the women's soccer team, finally get paid the same as the men's soccer team. But once you get a whole bunch of trans soccer players on the women's team, women are out. You know, and people try to make it a sensitive issue. No, you can't talk about that. That's bigotry. You're being replaced. That's the real hatred. You got played. Even the trans got played. It's all part of the MK Ultra brainwashing that's been going on in America. I've seen it. Bill Maher even did a show where he did a segment, his new rules, doing the graph, and then jokingly exaggerating the future. And everybody's going to become trans in the future. At the rate we're going. But you'll notice when it began. So, I'll close with what Mormon May shares. In her ward, since 2018, they were all about the gathering of Israel. And they were waiting for it to happen in 2020. And so with the lockdown, she says they disappeared. And she only got an email from her ward saying that she needs to pay tithing online now. So yeah, she has a laughing emoji. Because, yeah, that's the tragic truth. Church only cares about making money. Making money, owning land, so that when destruction hits, they come out on top. And those who are on top become the rulers. And that's the danger you all face that I'm trying to warn you about. So, that took more than I wanted to, but if I can save yet one person, how great shall be my joy in Zion, in a cave. Because I can't build the mountain cities of Zion and New Jerusalem all by myself. Are you kidding me? The time it takes alone, I'd maybe get one brick in place before I die, and it may be the cause of my death.